Yeah, perfectly.
Okay, great. But now, okay. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the studio visits for the YAMs, the Young Affiliates of the Mint. I am the Mint Chief Curator and Curator of Contemporary Art, Dr. Jen Soodle-Edwards. And joining me tonight is the amazing painter, Katherine Boxall. And I should also say the social Instagram maven for Gerald Melberg Gallery. So,
No, I don't know if I'm a maven, but I definitely post some pics for us. Yep.
yeah, beautiful pictures, as we were just discussing. So we are trying to schedule the studio visits about once a month for the YAMs. We were doing them in person back in the old days before the coronavirus pandemic. And hopefully we will be able to do them again at some point. But for the time being, we are taking the opportunity of this great format of Instagram Live to go into, to still go into painter studios and artist studios and get to talk to them.
Totally.
I hope all of you were able to come to the Mint Uptown and see Katherine's beautiful Constellation CLT installation that we installed back in January. And unfortunately is about to come down. I'm so sad. I know. It was beautiful. All of you, you can go onto our website and there are installation pictures, and Katherine did a couple of really wonderful press pieces for us, including a day in the life of the painter Katherine Boxall, which is actually revelatory. And I'm not going to ask you about your minutely and precisely scheduled life during this studio visit. But you can all read about it there. And I can't recommend trying to see her paintings in person enough because they are so stunning. Some of you may have seen them in the fall as well because she had an exhibition at the new Gallery for Modern Art on the Green in Uptown, right across the street from the Mint Uptown. And that was actually the last show that the gallery hosted before they closed their doors. But she is now represented by Gerald Melberg Gallery. And so I am sure there's a solo show in your future. Is there any news?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for the very, very sweet introduction. Jen has done a couple of these for me, and every time I'm like, okay, bring it, Katherine, because she's really hyped you up here. But yeah, so, it's been really awesome to have Gerald take me on board. And he actually saw my work for the first time in person at the Mint. And he had that experience. And then that's kind of, how that relationship started between us. I work with him every day in social media, which is awesome because I have this part-time gig that helps me just keep things consistent and then lets me have a focused studio practice when I am here where I can just unplug and not stress about the normal qualms of staying alive and paying bills and all that stuff. So, so we're going to do a show. The official date has not been released, but it will be early January 2021.
Oh, soon.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm sure not at all stressful because you are the fastest, most efficient painter I've ever met.
Don't tell Mary and Gerald that. They'll be like, can you do it in November? No. I mean, yes, I would, but no.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, sorry about that. Maybe he didn't figure out how to get on Instagram.
I'm just teasing. They definitely have a sense of my speed. They are in tune. We see each other every day. There are no secrets between us.
So I'm so glad it's still they've been open and everything's going well over there. Oh, we need
yeah.
Okay, because I am trying to keep this to a good tight minute so people can get on with their dinners. So I wanted to actually start with just a brief introduction to your life. Pouring around your walls. So, originally from Canada.
Yep. Yeah, I'm originally from Ottawa, Ontario. And I was way more interested in playing ice sports and snowboarding for a really long time. I decided to do a degree in fine art at Queen's in Kingston, mostly because I just was trying to, pick a degree that I was interested in, but get a degree. And I really didn't understand what it meant to like be an artist with a capital A until I graduated, and there wasn't. I mean, you're the only one who's going to make yourself do it after school ends. There's no one's gonna hold your hand, no one's gonna check in on you, no one's gonna babysit your progress. If you want to do it, you kind of have to go and do it. So what was really amazing for me is when I left Queens, I had this 6 months period in Sydney, Australia, where I decided to take a couple electives in painting at the University of New South Wales, so that I would kind of have this hand holding structure, but test out what it would mean to just paint without any of my social pressure, without knowing anybody, without anything. So I did that for 6 months and was able to, get a part-time job, have a routine, produce artwork on my own. And that's what gave me the confidence to pursue an MFA. So not to go on for too long, but I came back to Canada. I came back to Canada and just started applying everywhere I could to do an MFA. And I specifically wanted to travel more because it was so valuable to me to experience a different type of art school, because where I came from was so traditional. We had 25 students in my year. We only did oil painting. There was no acrylic painting, no type of painting at all other than oil painting. That was it. Printmaking was...
No one does that anymore.
No one does that anymore, which,
except
there's... Yeah, it served me. And that was the cool thing, was that it was what it was, but it was a purist kind of they had 7 instructors, 25 students, hardcore. This is what we do. We do it really well. We don't do anything else. So that was epic. But then, going to a different art school where I got there and I was in this painting elective course, and other people were like, "You're going to use paint for your paintings?" And I was like,
well, where did you go for your next?
That was...
Talk about
Yeah, exactly. So, Sydney gave me a taste, but then I went as far to the opposite.
Yeah.
I studied my MFA in San Francisco, which is the epitome of let's reject everything we think we know about art, throw it in the trash, put it in the washing machine, put fuzzy ears on it, and then we love it.
Yeah. You work on a surface?
Yeah, literally. They were
so conservative.
You're a figurative painter where we can see the figure. If you're a figurative painter, you should just be naked and walk around. That's what we want to see. We don't care about didactic images. We don't care about representation unless it's literal performance in front of us.
Yeah. It can't live forever. This isn't about the archive.
Yeah, we don't care about preservation. We want ephemerality.
You get the whole range, right? You already had that training.
Exactly. And that's what kind of made it so interesting and really brought me into my body of work now, was that because I was trained so traditionally as a figurative oil painter, going to San Francisco and ultimately being totally rejected by my peers. They were all like, "This is not interesting to us at all. Zero. You gotta do something." And I was like, because I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know what it meant for me to just look at a canvas, take everything that I know about painting and say, "Katherine, make a painting without representation. Make a painting without an image. Make a painting without the pressure of trying to convey anything other than painting, the essence of painting." And that just transformed really my whole practice, because I started thinking about what it meant for me to feel creative, or to be this is working, this is not, and for there not to be a literal reason for that, for it's not because the hand is a little too big or a little too small. It's just a feeling of this is too blue because I say it's too blue. This is and this is too linear because it feels too linear. So really kind of turning inward and asking myself to finally be an artist. What do you want to see? What don't you want to see? And how do you want to interact with the materials that you're so familiar with no rules?
Yeah.
No rules, So I don't remember what I was rambling about, but that's my rant.
Well, I was actually thinking because I wanted to ask you something about going back to what you were talking about in the beginning, kind of the practical aspect of being an artist.
Yeah.
But I'm worried that I'm going to get sidetracked. But so let me just ask this quickly, partially because I saw Jason Woodbury came on the feed, and he's someone who I've heard speak so pointedly about the importance of understanding the business of being an artist, like being responsible for your career, being responsible for your development as the manager of your career. And I was talking yesterday with the brilliant painter and teacher Beverly McKeever, who does the same thing, right? Like, she's a great teacher of painting, but she goes around the country lecturing about how to manage your career. Something that like is not often attended to in these programs. You have this very conservative, brilliant education in how to be a painter and master of, oil paints. And then you go and you learn how to be as conceptual as you can possibly be. But then how do you know how to manage your career and sell your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really important question, and it was one that I also felt just wasn't addressed in art school, which I thought was crazy. Like, I mean, I was trained to think, I was trained to know how to use my materials, but there really wasn't like practical training on how to like, I don't know, pay your taxes as an artist, or like whatever it is to like
What's
to
the
like
context?
live.
How do you negotiate the best rate with a representative? Like, be paying 50, I should be saying this, but should you be paying 50% to a gallery? Like,
exactly, like the entire business, and also like kind of knowing what protocols are, because I think one of the huge hurdles for artists is kind of like this insecurity that maybe we don't know how to like be as transactional or be like as businessy as other people, and that like is horrible, and that it like any kind of hesitation that you have even about maybe like emailing like a client or like an inquiry or someone, having those tools figured out and then being confident in them, I think is huge. And for me, what it was, I mean, there's a couple of different parts of it, because I was a student, and while I was a student, it was really important for me in order for me to have the creative space to make the best work, I knew for myself that getting rid of the financial stress was critical. So I selected, and I mean, if any artist who has this opportunity should do it. I selected my MFA school based on the scholarship funding that I was awarded.
I did that with people.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I was given like a really great fellowship, and so I wasn't worried about tuition. But then that's just one piece of it, right? Like, you have to have rent, you gotta have this, and my whole MO was I worked hard in the arts to kind of like build up some of my other skills, working for galleries on campus, working for nonprofits in the arts, just so that I could like still feel really comfortable because I'm in my field, but get these other skills. That way I always have something like steady, and then when I do paint, I'm not worried about selling it right away. Like, I can just paint it, and then when you have confidence in your work, you can market it way better. Like it's so, art is an emotional business, right? So being confident in the painting, that's a really good start. But then not being in a desperate situation is also really helpful too, because then you're taken more seriously, you're taken more professionally. So, as you said at the beginning, I'm crazy about pictures, because I've known for a very long time that the majority of people are going to interact with my work on a phone. Maybe some of them are going to interact with it on desktop, but for the most part, people are going to interact with my work on a phone. And so trying to convey texture, trying to convey scale, all of these things, it really comes down to professional documentation of your work and really good presentation skills. Like get it out there in a way that looks good on this little electronic magnet rectangle thing that we never leave the house without. Like, it's really...
Instagram has completely changed everyone's role as a professional marketer. I mean,
totally.
it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got to know how to take a good picture. You've got to know how to present it right. You've got to know the difference between like square versus just a regular snapshot.
Yep.
I mean,
And
I
you have to like know kind of how to talk about it in a way that people can connect to. Like there's a lot of different components of it, and then it's also knowing your worth as an artist. I think that's
yeah.
key. Like, put any imposter syndrome aside and just say like, yeah, I painted this. I'm gonna tell myself it's dope because I think it's dope.
Yeah, and that it's worth this amount. I mean,
Yeah.
again, not to go back to Jason, but like I quote this thing that I heard Jason Woodbury say, like he looked at this crowd of a lot of young people and he said, you need to figure out how much that painting is worth, and you need
Yeah.
to practice in front of a mirror saying that painting is worth $5,000.
Yeah, that's what
That
it is.
painting is worth $5,000. Oh,
Yeah.
that painting, it's $5,000. Like
Yeah.
saying that
Yeah.
until it's just totally comfortable and you have no problem saying it to whomever.
100%.
It's, oh my God, so much pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's true. Like, you got to treat it as a business because that's what it is. You're like, you're the CEO of your studio. You got to like make sure your materials are good. You got to make sure your books are clean. You got to like keep it organized. You got to like, the weird thing too as an artist and is like, you don't get paid like on a schedule, which is really good. So,
Yeah.
so like,
Hey, that
so
5,000, 10,000, 20,000 with confidence.
you gotta learn some discipline to reinvest in yourself. I think that's huge. One of the big things that I did, I was really lucky in grad school. I had really positive response. Like 8 out of 11 paintings that I showed at my MFA show were sold at the final exhibition. But I had people buying things out of my studio while I was there, which was really because I was just posting about it online and they became interested. But the number one thing that I was doing is I was using that money to reinvest in myself. I was buying more paint with it. I wasn't going out and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like I was reinvesting back into my work so that I could be better, so that I could be stronger, so that I could attract, you know, a certain clientele, so galleries, everything. And that's really important to keep the machine oiled. Like,
yeah, and that is the flip side of having that responsibility. And again, like Instagram is something that empowers artists to do this. Like you actually can control the narrative, you can control the production and exposure, right? So like you roll things out as you feel comfortable rolling them out, and you can do it rapidly or at a pace. And so you really have more agency than I think artists have been able to have in the past.
For
which
sure.
is liberating and wonderful as long as you learn how to use that system.
Totally. And another thing that's worked well for me is like kind of like not having all my eggs in one basket, right? Like I was doing a little bit of part-time work, but I was also applying for grants. And like, you know, like I got the Elizabeth Greenshields Foundation grant was actually a figurative grant that I got when I was in grad school, but that was like, you know, like that was like $15,000. Like that's great for a student. You're like, bang, let's do it.
Oh my God, I don't think I made that in a year.
That's what I mean. So, and that's the thing is like
$12,000 a year.
Yeah. So like as a student, I was like, hell yeah, like I'm gonna apply for this grant. I'm gonna get it. And then I got it, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy these frames and I'm gonna make these huge paintings because I'm, you know, that's the thing. It was all about the MFA show, and how do you stand out? And it's really that moment where you got to bring your A game. And so all I was concerned about, I wasn't worried about selling the works. I was worried about making them so good that people remembered and that maybe they would follow me going forward. I wasn't concerned about selling the 8x6 painting at all. It was like, how do I make people care about what I'm doing? How do I get them excited about art? And for me, there's literally nothing more exciting than being in front of a big, fat painting. A big one.
So let's talk about the big, fat paintings that are behind you.
Yeah, a big one. You know, like...
Do you want to give us a tour around? Do you want to move us?
I can. So one of the things that's kind of sad is I have like a bunch of paintings with you guys. I have I think I have like 8 paintings in the mint right now. And then my other paintings are at Gerald Melberg. So I only have in progress work, and I don't usually show in progress work, but I will show you guys my absolutely messy studio so that you can see where the magic happens. So yes, my studio is off Wilkinson Boulevard. It's a dream. I literally cried the first time I saw it because it's my perfect space. It's literally white cube with big LED lights and this massive roof, and I have my little couch from San Francisco that I got for $50 from an old lady that I don't even know what that couch has been through, but I've cleaned it, and that's literally like smoke stains from her smoking for like 70 years in San Francisco. Needless to say, we're not worried about paint getting on it. So this is my little kind of station. I have these lights for painting are really, really helpful because I can adjust the temperature on the back and the different, like how much the light comes out, because when you're painting with the LEDs, it's a really cool light. So sometimes putting warm and kind of like mimicking what natural light would be is helpful while I'm working. So I have those. I mean, like I said, I'm not clean at all. I have these works in progress over here. And then something that I don't typically show, but I always have a really large or even sometimes small pieces that are, I call them like crap paintings.
Uh-huh.
And what they serve to do is they live in my studio so that I can test things like without any fear at all. Colors, textures, whatever it is. So right now this is a work that I had in here while I was producing the Mint show. So this 8x6 horizontal has only lived here for me to produce paintings that are really polished and bright and colored, but it's literally a space like this is like text. This is some spray paint texture. There's pinks. These are colors I wouldn't normally put together, but it was a way for me to test and do something like that I'm not worried about, that I'm never going to show, but it is there just to keep me in the zone while I am working on, cleaner palettes like this, right? That type of thing. So yeah, I think it's really important as an artist to let yourself have space for low pressure work.
Yeah.
Like, because otherwise, especially like, Jason said I should show it. I mean, maybe.
It would have been interesting actually to have that with the Mintworks, right? To
Yeah.
see what that, because it's a palimpsest of everything that you've been doing.
Yeah.
Resulted in the canvases on the wall. I actually think it's really interesting.
Yeah, and sometimes they actually work out. Like I had a little painting in the show at the new Gallery of Modern Art that was a 22 by 16. It was a little guy, but it was my crap painting. It was a small one, and it ended up being my favorite painting by far. I was like, this is the winner chicken dinner, and literally the florist came to drop off the flowers at the opening, saw it and bought it. She was like, that one, and I told her, I was like, you got the best one. That is the one. Like, it's right there. But that's the thing. It's people can feel like, I don't want to sound overly spiritual, but paintings are emotional and people can feel your emotion in them. They can feel the energy that you brought to them, whether that was energetic, whether it was slow, whether it was fast. Like, they feel what you went through because, and I've talked to you about this before, it's a very performative thing to paint, and to paint at scale, you're using your whole body in a lot of different ways. You're reaching, pulling, pouring, stretching, sometimes working small, sometimes working big. So it's like they're gonna feel what you went through. Your color choices say something about your mood, what you've been looking at, like everything. So like, getting yourself in the mental and physical space where you can connect with yourself is how people will connect with your work.
Yeah, and Jason just said, like, it's like a diary or a journal.
Yeah, exactly.
Really part of this studio business.
Without having to see your words. That's the best. Yeah. You're like, sometimes I write stuff like in my notes and I'm like, that doesn't sound any good. Katherine, just paint. Don't say anything.
Can you walk us through one of your, like, pick any of the paintings that you feel like is at a good spot for this, but maybe walk through the process because you have a very layered approach to the construction.
Yeah, and I'll start right from the beginning, which will be kind of helpful. So I'll step out of my studio here so you guys can see. So like I said earlier, the guys who own this warehouse are
wood shop guys. They're really, really great. I'll just show you the front of it too. And this is like I mean, this is the space. This is all projects that they do, coffee tables, big things. They just made look at how gigantic this couch is. I don't think you understand how long this is. They just made this like 14-foot couch for, I mean, it's more than that. It's like 30 feet. I don't know. Who needs a couch that long? Like, do you see this? It's so long. Anyways, so they build all my, my stretcher frames for me here in the warehouse. So the first step, obviously, is this is an 8x6 frame that they built for me, that I had to build for me, but I have lots of different sizes here. So that's the first thing. So they built them for me in the wood shop. And then I come in here and we've got this beautiful, gigantic roll of canvas. My favorite. So stretch the painting in my studio. I do it myself. Sometimes my fiance Austin helps me, but he hates doing it. I know he hates doing it. He's like, it's dirty there. Why am I here? But he helps me sometimes. And then, yeah, to walk through the process, it's a little weird and backwards how I work. Let's go with, I'll go back and forth between two to help explain. Okay, so this is a work in progress. You guys can see this beige, right? So this beige is actually the raw canvas, right? And the first thing that I do is I go with kind of like a watery, kind of like an underbrush or whatever. And I just kind of have like a wash. That's the word I was looking for, a wash of little things. In this case, I wanted to do like linear lines or like small drips on a wash with pink. So that's what I kind of wanted to be farthest away. And to do that, I use all types of different things. I use like literally like stuff you'd use in the yard, like different like watering tools.
Oh my God, that's
yeah, I mean, I use spray bottles. I can't even see where they are. I have different spray. Oh yeah, here it is. You know, I have like spray bottles. This is like me mixing gross paint in there. And then I like kind of like set up like an atmospheric background that's really, really light and transparent. I mean, you can see like this pink is still showing like the canvas through. So that's like the first step. And then, not to like give you my whole process because I gotta have some secrets, but I use transparent.
You wrote on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, this is exactly how you replicate everything that I've ever done. Go for it. So then I use transparent gesso to do my pores. And sometimes I use house paint too. I definitely use house paint for the pores, but a lot of times I use transparent gesso because what that does is when I'm creating the pores, like literally the pores of paint, right? So it's laying on the floor and I'm pouring the paint over it, is that you have so much control over your composition, even though it's this kind of like spontaneous pouring action. You can move this paint however you want once it's on the canvas and it's clear.
Right.
So if you hate it, you can literally wipe it all off and try again. Yeah, so I love that type of flexibility. So you can kind of, this is tough because there's paint underneath, but this is transparent paint. I'm trying to see if there's a spot. You can kind of tell there's transparent paint. And then once I have like these splashes or interesting compositions that I like, I actually add the color afterwards. And so basically, I know it's kind of hard to picture because I don't have like a really raw one in here, but you have like the atmospheric wash, you have transparent pores on top, and then afterwards you can go in, I go in with house paint to like color block. And then my final step is oil and pastel. And the reason for that is if you've ever painted in acrylic, there's a couple of things that are happening. For one, unless you've really primed your canvas, it will drink your paint and you're like, where'd it go? Yeah. It's gone. So I use acrylic kind of like to color block just because it soaks right in. It kind of gives me a map. I also use, you know, a lot of pastel at the very beginning to kind of like map up different composition. I think I've talked to you about that before, which comes from my figurative background of like, if you're sketching a figure and you use graphite on canvas and then you go and try and put paint on it, the graphite will literally ruin your paint. Yeah. You'll be so frustrated because you'll be so excited with these like pure pigments and you may as well start over because you've ruined it. So I got in the habit of always sketching and drawing on canvas with, I'm looking around because I'm searching for it. Yeah. You know, pastels. So I always draw everything that I do in pastels. Oh, actually, this is kind of helpful. So you see, this is a figurative sketch I have in my
Oh my
studio.
God, she's still there.
Yeah, she's always here. This is Zoe. She's my muse. I love her so much. She was a really good friend I had in grad school who posed for me all the time, but we would like sit down and I'd draw for an hour, and that was our ritual that we did together. But even like on that wall, you can see kind of these little figurative drawings that I do in pastel just to kind of like keep my chops up. But yeah, so I map out a lot of my compositions in pastel because it keeps your painting really pure, and then you have a lot of flexibility to move that off. I mean, you can take a brush and you can just scratch off the pastel and then it'll just dust off your canvas. Like, it's awesome. Yeah. So again, like, you'll notice I do a lot of things to kind of like keep it low pressure or whatever. It's like, I swear I'm not this harsh on myself, but it feels good in painting to know that it's not final when you're working, that it's alive, that you can work with it, like it's malleable.
So when you're that large, it's a lot of real estate to lose if you make a mistake.
Yeah, and paint.
Yeah.
I go through a lot of transparent paint though, like a lot. Like, it's a repeat order on Amazon. I'm like, I mean, we gotta get some more of that.
Weekly ship.
Yeah. And one of the ways I color the pores is with white spray paint. And actually, one of the things I haven't really talked about before is, you know, you get like this amazing airbrush effect from spray paint sitting on top of these pores of acrylic paint, whether it's house paint or it's gesso. And I use my fan to literally direct the spray paint on it, because if you spray directly, you don't have as much control unless you're using a stencil, which you can use. I do it to like tape whatever. But if you're using the air, it has like this really soft airbrush vibe where like these particles of paint just blow into your painting lightly.
That surprises me, because it feels like it'd be less directed if it were through the fan. And you have the bug spray, right? You have the insecticide spray.
Yeah, it is less directed, but then you know the motion, and because the pores are 3D, then you have one side of, this is the coolest part about it, is in the pores you'll have one edge that has like white or red or whatever, and the other edge will be like a different color because it like came in. So it like, do you know what I mean? Like, you can actually create, you can actually create form by like controlling the way that the spray paint is coming, not like straight on but sideways.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of things happening, I know. But yeah, and then oil for me, always wrap it up with oil because it's beautiful color, it shines, it'll finally sit on top because your canvas is covered up so it won't drink everything. And you'll have color. And pastel too at the end is gorgeous because, again, you'll have these rich colorful areas. I mean, you can kind of see, I'm like, this is still pretty much in the flesh, but you can kind of see some of these things coming in. I mean, these are like the washes underneath. This is the white spray paint. This is the transparent paint, but you can see how matte it is, and you can see how absorbed it is.
Yeah.
And not sitting on the top yet. That's because this is all acrylic paint and pastel, versus once it becomes oil, it lifts, you know, it'll lift off the canvas. It'll give you the sharper lines.
Yeah.
It'll look a lot more clean.
Well, and also nothing can get that rich color like oil can. I mean, to have that as like the first color that you encounter.
Yeah.
I mean, and then to have that like distilled pigment from the spray paint, it really does just become these like intense focused color studies, which is what makes the work, even though it's often very large and often there's a lot going on in there.
Yep.
As a viewer, you don't really feel lost because that color is so like pure and saturated and so intense that there's always that kind of focal point, even though it's spread over this big landscape.
Absolutely. And the other thing about that is, and again, this comes from like the traditional figurative background that I come from, is it gives you a depth of field when you're looking at abstract work. Yeah. I love that painting is about 2D, and I love painters that really manipulate that and own that. Like, this is 2D, things are going to be distorted. That, like, I love that. But for me, what I find fascinating about trying to incorporate like depth when you are dealing with a 2D surface that's just constantly hitting you, and you're hitting it with the paint or the graphite, is, yeah, how can I like build up a texture to kind of like create depth where you see the raw canvas, you see the wash, you see the pour, you see the paint on top, you see these, you know, really bright pastel lines that maybe like cross all over all of those things. And then suddenly you are feeling like you have more atmosphere in the space with the painting. And yeah, you just have more texture and more depth and more interesting stuff to look at. Isn't that, I mean, that's the point for me.
So kind of building on that, interesting stuff to look at, I wanted to close with you talking about this recent walkabout that you did. So you and your fiance went on like a 3-week cross the country national forest trip. And I said to you when you were on your way back, I said, I can't wait to hear or see how that's your color palette. Yeah. And I see the work behind you is incredibly saturated with the yellows, magenta, those fuchsias. Yeah. So how was it, and what's kind of like one or two of the key things that you think is going to really affect your work going forward?
Absolutely. Well, here, I think that number one is that it was just because I am Canadian, seeing the country, seeing the landscape, like, and like literally like what the earth is like in the US was amazing.
So the range is amazing.
Yeah, like I've just never seen anything like that. I've never seen anything like Utah. I've never seen anything like West Texas. I've never seen anything like that. I have never seen so many different sunsets ever. So like to even like have like a constant like that, okay, like sunset colors. I thought I knew them. Now I do not. Like I was like,
that's interesting.
So much more here. And so it's interesting that you wanted me to talk about that that trip, because my intention actually, you know, I photo documented tons of it. I also brought with me actually some crayons and watercolors on the trip, but my plan is to actually map out palettes from the different places that I went to, you know, like the amazing neutrals and greens that are in certain areas, like, oh my God, the greens that are, you don't think of the desert as being green, but those like really soft, tiny little greens that pop up once in a while with the oranges and the tans and the yellows and the whites. And like thinking, for me, like thinking about mapping my palettes is what I'm going to be working on for the next 3 months of like, okay, this is Arizona and there's like 8 colors. This is like Colorado and there's 8 colors. And my intention is to bring all of that for my next body of work for the show at Gerald Melberg. You know, have these different little collections, like 5 or 6 paintings that represent each state that I visited, and the colors that I saw that I've never seen before. So yeah.
Interesting. Spencer Finch, he's a Brooklyn artist, well, New York City artist, and he's in the Mint's Fall Show. He's a similar thing. He's a great master of color in all ways. But the piece that we're showing is this piece, Sunset South Texas, and it was the range of tones and colors that he experienced in South Texas during a sunrise. And he, like when you go to a studio, that's something that you find, like you'll find like scraps of paper where he's exploring all the different tones of blue that he experienced in this particular light in Japan versus, I mean, it's fascinating.
For sure.
How you remember that though, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a very specific type of memory.
Definitely. And it goes into texture as well, right? Because we'd go through cities where the Holiday Inn sign from the 70s was still there. Like that affects you. You know what I mean? Like you see the design all of these years and you see like how it's run down and like all these, and like sometimes that's beautiful, right? Like the way that things decay becomes really amazing. And so like the aesthetic experience of driving across country is insane. As a painter, it's like sensory overload. I literally was like, I'm make like 50 paintings now. Like I was like, I gotta go.
Well, I'm excited to see what comes next. I guess we will see it in Gerald's gallery in January, sometime in 2021. Let's
Yes,
put that.
January.
So thank you so much for taking the time. I also want to thank again the young affiliates of the Mint for giving us this opportunity. Their support is endless for the museum, and it's great that we're able to bring in the voices of the artists that we show in the gallery. So I really appreciate their openness to having these conversations on their Instagram live page. And again, I'm sorry you all can't see the works in person, but please visit the Mint's website to see the installations. And we'll see them in a couple of months, right? In the flesh. Yeah. I guess 6. I guess it's long.
Exactly. Lots of them.
Thank you for your time tonight, Katherine. It was so great seeing you. And I look forward to our next studio visit whenever that is.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever it's safe. Although I'm the only one in here, so it's pretty safe.
Okay. Well, I will keep that in mind. As soon as we can, let's do it.
Okay.
All right, it was great seeing you.
Thanks.
Bye. Talk to you soon.